all the fucking opponents, it had to be fucking Venom. This was the opponent I wanted the absolute least. I said it wasn't likely, but not impossible, and here we are. The third Marvel DC fight in a row. As in, like, Marvel or DC, not Marvel versus, like, well, fucking idiots who think that the problem is just Marvel versus DC. It's Marvel and DC in general. Like, it's not only that, this is the third returning character of the season if you don't count Wally vs. Archie, which I do not count. And as of this episode, 40% of the season is going to be Marvel or DC. 40%! 9 out of 20 episodes. To put that into perspective, that's the second highest of any Death Battle season. And that's assuming they won't do another one this season. Because if they do one more Marvel or DC episode, that is going to jump up to 45%. The highest of any season of Death Battle. It's not just Marvel or DC that's a problem. It's why Venom? Why is it Venom? Like, the one who is still weak to sonic attacks, not Carnage or even Scream. Venom. I hate the reasoning of this obscure anime character that's got to fight a Marvel or DC because views. Well, no, people say it's because it helps to promote the obscure character. That's not what they're fucking. That's not the fucking thing they're thinking. They're not thinking, oh, we love Soul Eater, let's put it against a Marvel character so they can get more fans over to it. No, people, they're thinking, we don't want to take a risk with Soul Eater on its own or with something else, let's just put it against a Marvel to ensure there's some views. And like, that's fine, right? Like, that mentality from them is fine, because they have to do that, because, like, they have to consider that sort of thing, because it's a job, right? But when people use that defense, it's like, no, it's not a defense. Like, the reason they didn't use Shiro from Dead Man Wonderland is probably because Shiro is from an obscure series, Dead Man Wonderland. Most of you people don't even know it. Like, I think that's the best matchup for Crona. Like, personally, it's got the best connections. And the problem is, the fucking normie crowd, I'm gonna call them, that Death Battle has to do and has to focus its writing on, they wouldn't know who that is. Like, I mean, it's because of this crowd, right? The Death Battle had to, like, have to do things really weirdly, like no scaling between heralds often. And like, it releases things like the shit conclusion to Zuko vs. Todoroki, which if I was not in the verse community, I would not have bought that ending. Like, that conclusion is so bad. It's like, I would think, okay, why can't Zuko just melt the big ice wall? You did not explain sufficiently why Zuko can't just melt it, or why he couldn't just kill Todoroki with his first fireball, which is probably, like, you didn't even address if that's faster than the ice or not. It looks faster, like the ice could clear a big space in a short time, but then in close quarters, the fireballs move super fast in Avatar. And like, there's no reason why Zuko can't dodge the ice ball. You didn't explain that well enough. You didn't say the ice is as fast as as Todoroki's lightning. There's so much missed out on that actually would explain it. Anyway, enough fucking complaining about the matchup itself, because it's a shit matchup. Let's talk about who wins. I think Crona wins. See, like, looking at their stats, Venom, to my knowledge, should be 10 times faster, and he has better regen, and is probably more skilled and a more experienced fighter, and yeah, I mean, he's got a lot more experience. He's been fighting for a lot longer than Crona has. He's a lot older. But Crona, I think, one-shots. Venom does have hacks that could work. They're fairly recent, I've heard, so, like, possessing people with symbiote, but I think he still needs to damage his opponent, which is going to be really hard on Crona, who is just too durable. The thing is, though, I've talked to DB researchers in the past, and they've told me that Carnage would still lose to Lucy because of her AoE and AP. As in, if Carnage was light speed, he would still lose to Lucy because she's got too high an attack, and is too durable to even be harmed by the symbiote, and has better, like, area of effect. So the hacks would not work on her. The same thing would happen with Crona, wouldn't it? They also have a big AoE and AP advantage over Venom, and they should... Obviously, AP should scale durability unless there are exceptions. Like, if it's purely magic-based, you could argue no, or if it's like Deku, where it explicitly does not. So I don't see how they're going to argue Venom winning. Because, like, even then... Like, okay... even if you go with, like, the Venom has this one hacks that works, Death Battle has said in the past that having one win con doesn't mean you're going to win, because they examine who wins most of the time. So how are they going to explain that most of the time Venom is going to go full speed from the start and use the one single power he has that will work on Crona before Crona creates a city-sized dome of black blood to kill him? It's like that's the problem. Even though they said just because Weiss has this one technique that will always beat Mitsuru doesn't mean she'll win, but then they have Shiro vs. Wonder Woman, oh, Wonder Woman just needs to use her sword and her speed to win, ignoring the fact that Wonder Woman prioritizes her lasso and her fists over her sword, generally. That depends on the version of Wonder Woman, though. Anyway, I do not think Crona will lose. I think Crona's got this in the bag, and I'm okay with that, because I like Crona. I mean, I don't like them as much as Death the Kid. Death the Kid's my favorite Soul Eater character. I love him so much. It manages to take, like, that sort of, like, edgy-esque character, but make him very entertaining. He's very fun to see play off, and despite the fact that they use the symmetry joke a lot, it doesn't actually get old, and that's just a sign of really good writing. I love Death the Kid. I'd love to see Death the Kid in a death battle. I know it's not likely. Black Star and, of course, Marker are more likely to get in before Death the Kid, but I want to see Death the Kid. I love Death the Kid. Anyway, let's talk about two other episodes that came out. 7 Battle Royale. To nip it in the bud, I don't think this being a bonus episode exempts it from criticism. It's a stupid argument. Are you going to say you can't talk bad about Mask vs. Deadpool or Bieber vs. Black because they're joke episodes? No, and even then, this episode was not treated as a joke. Serious analysis time went into figuring out the order of the winners, and in the end, I think it turned out bad. The analysis was boring. The best jokes were in the previews. I did find them funny in the preview. I thought the previews were really good, and they actually got me hyped for the episode. But, like, there are some okay jokes, they just didn't really get me. And the problem is, when the jokes aren't funny, I want to see good research, a good analysis of the characters. They didn't. There's like a 10-minute analysis for 7 characters, 6 characters, Translucent and Black Knight didn't really count. Like, the rest of the boys weren't involved. Like, why was there Billy Butcher and the boys as a preview when Billy Butcher was the only boy? It should have just been Billy Butcher. They didn't even talk about what Billy could do. The Black Noir jokes were entertaining at first, but got repetitive really quickly. The only joke that I found funny past the 3-minute mark was Black Noir nodding to them dissing the Deep. I like that. It's a small background detail, but I like it. I get tired of them talking about how like, talking in the analysis about how it's a simulated battle, and the analysis was just boring. There was nothing I found entertaining. They barely scratched the stats or abilities of the characters in any meaningful way. And for a battle between the 7 that only had 5 combatants, they couldn't do something. Like, I get the stories that they were bought out by Vought International, and like, it's to publish things. Like, that's a good way to put in those jokes. Like, and don't forget to check out his upcoming movie, Insurrection. But they didn't even talk about what the characters could do to any meaningful extent. Which, with the Deep, is fine. That was the joke. I got the joke. His part of the analysis was my favorite part. But I get with Billy, it's okay. You know, you could say fine, because Billy the Butcher, he's a villain. But they didn't even mention the laser baby in the analysis. Like, why? Was that not confusing for people in the animation without prior knowledge? Oh, he's just got a laser baby. Really? Really? Now, the animation was suboptimal. It was so slow, and a lot of it is stiff. The voice acting was good, and the custom sprites are great, except Starlight, but that's not because it's bad, it's because it's the first time we're seeing this sprite base in Death Battle. It's a good sprite, it's just, I prefer the look of Starlight with the cape. A lot of the movement and expression still feel very Dorkly-esque, especially Homelander at the end, but that's a minor issue. There are some really, really bad shots, like A-Train dodging Starlight's beams and his arms just not. Or Starlight after seeing May flying past with her, like, Starlight whenever she has to express, looks like a Dorkly character. This scene with Wiz and Boomstick in the middle of the animation is unnecessary, and it broke my immersion completely. In fact, it also makes no sense in universe. They said this was a simulation, right? Why would they be worried about simulated people? Who did they pay to compensate? Who did they pay compensation to? The simulated people? If it's not a simulation, why is Billy here? Like, he'd know Homelander would kill him literally whenever he wants. Why would Billy agree to be here? How did Billy survive this? Did Starlight not think to turn her beam slightly to the right a little to kill him? What the fuck? Why didn't Starlight just run away from the falling building? Why did A-Train not get out of the way of this attack when the beams were moving so slowly to him? One of the biggest problems of this fight as well is it's just so predictable. Like, I knew from the start, Deep would die. Probably by A-Train, because he's the only one that could get away with the Robin death on. Billy was obviously going to win, like, either unironically or with Homelander stealing the win at the end. And if anybody was surprised, I don't know how that's possible. Nothing surprised me in this fight. I knew Billy would end up being the winner of the fight, and it'd probably be because of the laser baby. As for positives, as I said, the voice acting was okay and the custom sprites are good, and that's all I have to say. It was so boring because nothing was unexpected. The conclusion was good though, but why was it a separate video? Like, this better not be a continuing thing. They could have easily this could have been in the episode after her Black Noir left, and it would have been fine. If anyone wants to know what the problem is with the separate video, if it keeps happening, then Death Battle will either have worse conclusions in their episodes, which would be annoying, or they'll be wasting money on making extra videos. Like, what if they decide to, like, shorten the length of the conclusion, and as a first video, put out this? Or would they put it out with the YouTube video, and not with, as, like, early with the, like, what would they do with that? Or they'll be wasting money on them. Death Battle doesn't have a massive budget to compare to something like Ruby. It needs to use its money smart. Making extra stuff as a separate video is wasting their money for, like, the very few people who are gonna care enough about an extended analysis video. Just make the main video a few minutes longer and you'll satisfy both camps, and use the cheaper Q&A format to answer the questions people are asking. Still, the conclusion was in-depth and it was good. It was easily, by a landslide, the most entertaining part of the episode. It was just really fun. The only things I dislike are... comparing a laser beam to a truck in terms of output is weird. They're very different. Also, they put A-Train above Starlight even though the animation has him die first, which is a little bit weird. And they ignore that Billy is a bigger threat than Deep, so he's not actually the weakest one there. There's also no reason A-Train, with his speed, couldn't just kill Starlight, Billy, and Deep in one single run. Then take on Maeve solo with his huge speed advantage. He'll probably lose. Like, it's not his style, but they also ignore, like, morality and stuff, so there's no reason he wouldn't. Still, I do generally agree with this order. Anyway, this episode was disappointing. I was cautiously optimistic because I really liked the boys, but this is not a great episode. You know what also was disappointing? Not Red Hood vs. Winter Soldier, because it was pretty damn good. A solid 7 out of 10. Yeah, sorry, it's just a 7. There is a lot of good, and the choreography is solid as hell. The CGI arm didn't even look like CGI until this part, which made it pretty obvious. This part just looks like CG to me. And the helmet for Red Hood is just... oh, it looks so good. I like the creativity as well. Like, there was a good use of, like, knife play and stuff. Though they did have, like, a lot of weapons and other things that they brought up that Bucky and Jason had in the analysis that they didn't use, which they could have, at least with, like, the stuff that was in Bucky's arm, you know? I guess, like, with the All Blades, I understand, because they bring it, they show it in the corners, but, you know. I also like that it very well showed off that Jason is way weaker without Venom in terms of raw strength. Unfortunately, I do think there's more bad to say. Like, the analysis was super short and bare bones. There was very little to do with their actual stats, and no numbers were given either. Less than Zuko vs Todoroki, and the conclusion was pretty weak. It was, we know Venom is a 10 times boost, which should have been brought up in the analysis, and oh, but Jason's helmet is below knife level, which wasn't brought up at all. And ignores that literally in this scene, Jason says that his hood should be too durable for a knife to break him. So, you know, it should be above knife level anyway. And, like, they say their speeds are similar, but don't really express how, and they don't even bring up speed much in the analysis. In fact, looking at the analysis, I have no idea what they're going for with stats beyond Bucky can dodge bullets and has helicopter-level durability, and that's mostly it. And, like, while I think the editing for the analysis is really good, I think people talk a lot about, or people mentioned a lot that Archie Sonics was good because they didn't have footage. I think this is way better. I think this editing shits on Archie Sonic's editing, because, like, there's panels that are taken, like, there's bits of panels that are cut out and faded in, and Like, they animate some of the panels as well, and it's, like, very creatively done, and there's the punch, like, the Superboy Prime retcon punch that was conveyed in a fantastic way. I actually think the jokes were pretty solid in the analysis, but this part I have issues with.
The Winter Soldier. Along with this new persona,
I think if they had edited more like this, it would have been better.
The Winter Soldier. Along with this new persona.
Speaking of what should have been better, the death is shit. It's rubbish. A quick and sudden death inherently is not a problem if it was more obviously a death. Like, they could have just had an up-close shot of Jason's twitching corpse face with Bucky's hand crushed through the helmet digging into his skull. And without Bucky walks away, it's framed that it seems really like it's not the end and Jason's gonna get back up. If I was doing it, I would have had a bit where Jason tears off Bucky's arm with Venom, and then goes for the gunshot with Bucky's gun, then explodes in his hand. Then I'd have Bucky taking Jason's helmet off of his body and beating him to death brutally with it. Maybe even have Jason go for the self-destruct with the helmet, but then Bucky survives. And he's like injured really heavily, but he calls up and he's like, get me help. Oh, I'm injured. Grr. And that would have been better. But then even the little head pat with a light squeeze could have been better if it was edited and framed better. If you don't know what I'm saying, here is Snake vs. Fisher, which in my opinion is one of the best deaths in the series. And this is it edited as if it was Jason versus Bucky.
You're pretty good.
You're pretty good.
Snake? Snake?
Yeah. I also have an issue with Bucky in general. While the arm looks good, I think it could be bulkier. I think it looks a bit too skinny for my liking, but that's a minor thing. He kind of just looked like a hobo in a funny jacket, and I don't mean any offense to the actor either. I think Tyler Tackett, I think his name is, just did a really good job with what he had. I'm not a fan, though, of the outfit. Like, the mask for Bucky is supposed to be like a hard mask, isn't it? Like, a solid mask, generally. But, like, the cloth just looks weird, and he's got eyeliner. I mean, it's probably not eyeliner, eyeshadow. It's just, like, it looks like he's got, like, some sort of artificial darkener around his eyes. It looks really goofy to me. But I just think the costume looks very dirty and ragged, when really it shouldn't. And also, his voice is a little high-pitched. He sounds kind of like a 15-year-old when he's getting hit by Venom Jason, like, No, once again, no offense. It's a criticism, but not a criticism of the person. It's a very minor one, too. I feel like that's just, like, something you're gonna have to deal with an actor sometimes, is like the way their voice sounds generally. Because it's better than trying to fake it and making yourself not sound like you're getting hurt at all. Because once again, both actors did a really good job, and they followed the choreography really well. And, oh yeah, low-key, one of my favorite scenes is just when Jason's in pain on the ground and Bucky walks and like, stumbles into the back, and they just, like, take a moment to have a breather, like, panting, like, without trying to kill each other. That's one of my favorite scenes in the entire fight. Talking about favorite scenes, I know some people's favorite scenes, the, Jason's reaction to the crowbar. No, it looks so funny to me. Like, he's holding his head. It's like he's very heavily overacted in this scene, like a cartoon or an anime character. And like Bucky, if Bucky can just like lightly grab someone's head and give him a head pat squeeze kill, he should have done it here. Or when Jason goes to grab the Venom, and he takes that moment to say, "Sorry, Bruce." Why didn't Bucky just pimp slap it out of his hand and then break his face? Or why didn't he grab his head while he was being powered up by Venom and kill him then? Still, this is a huge glow up from Nightwing vs. Daredevil. I think that episode was suboptimal, but it was not the worst episode, but it is a really bad one. At least the Daredevil costume is really good. And honestly, I probably could have given this episode an 8 or a 9 out of 10 if the analysis and conclusion weren't so shithouse. Anyway, ignoring criticisms for the most part, it's way better than I expected. In fact, I can safely say it's really good. And while I have issues, the Ismahawk team that actually did the fight clearly had a lot of passion for the match. The problems in the fight, aside from the death itself, aren't really that big, or really their own faults, like with Bucky's voice when he's grunting. It's just like, the actor, but he did a good job anyway, and he looked the part for the most part. All of my big issues are with the analysis or then the conclusion, which don't seem like in the writing room they had nearly the amount of love as the fight or the editing. The editing is fantastic in this episode, for the analysis. I think it's really creative. Also, did I mention that I hate Venom vs. Crona? Like, why didn't they just reveal Venom first instead of getting people hyped at all these possibilities? I guarantee that their fans would not have been disappointed if Venom's opponent was revealed and they revealed Venom's fighting Crona, because people wouldn't have as high expectations. And if they were worried about people not being as hyped for Venom coming back as Crona coming in, then the entire point about Venom being chosen as his opponent because Venom's hugely popular would be moot if he could not get the same amount of hype as Crona. Maybe it's because there's two Marvels. There would have been two Marvels there, Miles and Venom, both are Spider-Man characters. Why didn't they just reveal Esdeath? You know, another super popular anime character from a moderately popular series just like Crona. I mean, I think Grey is a very bad match for Esdeath, honestly, but it's not a super disappointing one, especially because, like, the more popular pick would have been Esdeath versus Satsuki Kiryu, and that's much worse. Also, what the hell, guys? That Supergirl's grip thing was another Golden Tree scenario, or GTS. You know, from Beast vs. Goliath. You remember how it... Of course you don't remember, it's Beast vs. Goliath. It's that bit in the analysis for Beast where they calc this super impressive 60-ton tree feat. Then in the conclusion they just said, well, yeah, but actually no, he didn't lift the whole thing. Like Ganon being vulnerable to holy weapons, but actually no, he's completely immune to anything that isn't a holy weapon. They're the only thing that can kill him. Cable could match Silver Surfer, but actually no, he got stomped. Jason could break out of Supergirl's grip, but actually no, he didn't, she wasn't gripping him that hard. Oi, 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 I hate it when they do that. Also, it's a 0 out of 10 episode because Wiz didn't use the politically correct term retcon punches for Superboy Prime's punches. I mean, come on guys, you should know better than that.